Christopher Lagon claims that he has an IQ between 195 and 225, and he's lying. And so I decided I would make a quick video explaining how I know that. Most people are never going to be IQ tested because the test is very expensive. Depending on which test you take, it can cost between $350 and $1,500 to be tested, and you are seldom given just one test. There's also the time involved and having a professional who's trained in that specific test who will then administer and score it. And I know this because that's what I used to do. I used to administer the Woodcock-Johnson 3 back when that was the test that was used. We can do a deep dive into IQ tests and all their iterations later, but right now, suffice to say there are 3 main tests that are used. There's the Stanford-Binet, there's the Woodcock-Johnson, and there's the Wechsler scales. And all 3 of these tests have a maximum IQ of 160. Meaning, if you score 100% and answer the most optimum version of the correct answer for each question for the entire 2-hour-long test, you'll score 160. Which, as it happens, is what Stephen Hawking scored. In addition to the cost, the other reason that most people are never IQ tested is because they are never recommended for testing. IQ tests are not just administered willy-nilly, and they are especially not administered because you seem smart. They are a diagnostic tool used by doctors, neurologists, and teachers to determine what's wrong with the brain. The most common reason that an IQ test is administered is because a student is showing profound difficulties in school, and so it is suspected that they have a developmental disorder or disability or an intellectual disability. The other reason it might be administered is if someone has a known and diagnosed neurological condition, a TBI, traumatic brain injury, or a degenerative disorder like ALS, which is the reason that Stephen Hawking was tested. Besides those big 3 that I named, there are other tests, but they are typically only administered as secondary tests after the first one indicates that there is, in fact, a disability or discrepancy between the subject's brain and the average brain. And these tests are used to dig into more detail and find out exactly what's going wrong so that it can be addressed either medically or educationally. Now, the next thing that IQ grifters are going to do, besides name some crazy high IQ, which if it's above 160 you automatically know is a lie, is they will claim to have been tested very highly at a very young age, and they will claim to be part of a high IQ society. Testing high at a young age is not a flex, because these tests are not universal. They are normed to each age group. What that means is that if you are taking the test as a 6-year-old, your score is being compared to a specifically selected sample of normal 6-year-olds who don't have any disabilities. These children's scores are compiled together and averaged to form the 100, and your score is considered normal if you match up to them, and it's considered special and wonderful if you're smarter than a 6-year-old. So if someone tells you something like, oh, I scored 180 when I was 2 years old, first of all, no you didn't, and second of all, it's not hard to be smarter than a 2-year-old. When it comes to high IQ societies, most people are not part of them, and so they don't really know what they entail. So I'll just outline it really briefly, and hopefully it'll make sense. The most famous high IQ society is Mensa because it is the longest running, oldest original society, and it requires you to be in the 98th percentile, which is 130.8 IQ or above. They donate money towards science, but most of what they do is act like a fraternity and a social club for people with high IQs to meet, greet, socialize, play brain games, and etc. 99th percentile, or 140 and higher IQ, have a couple of big-name societies, Intertel and Prometheus. Like Mensa, they are primarily social clubs, and they do also donate money to help with science. Prometheus Society also publishes a magazine periodically. I've read one article. It just didn't really interest me because my interests are fairly niche. If you score In the 99.9th percentile, which is 146 and above, you could qualify for Mega Society or 999. 999 is far more famous and also more prestigious, but again, they are primarily social societies, social groups, like fraternities. They arrange for people who have these high scores to meet each other and socialize together and sort of commiserate on things that they've experienced that other people maybe have not. Mega Society does a little something extra, which is they are interested in the metaphysical aspect of things and the possibility of like psychic powers. And I know this because when I was IQ tested as a child, Mega Society reached out to me as a result of my score. Which again, I was a child, so my score being 146 or above is not impressive because I was being compared to children. And I want to make it clear I'm not doing a high IQ flex. I'm just saying this is an experience that I had and a source of my knowledge on the topic. Anyways, I just wanted to outline all of that for you guys so that when people come to you trying to trick you by claiming to be super crazy smart, calling themselves geniuses, saying they're part of Mensa, etc., and then try to leverage that to convince you to do things you wouldn't otherwise do or to give them money, they're grifting, and now you know it too.